Okay, so we have to be able to work backwards. So far we've worked on being given a quadratic and finding the roots. So if we find the roots in context, or if we're talking about a graph, if we're finding the roots of a quadratic or the roots of any equation, we're solving it for x. We're finding out what x is equal to. And on a graph, that tells us where it crosses the x-axis. So if this tells us that the roots are 7 and minus 5, that meant when we solved this quadratic, we got x is equal to 7 and x is equal to minus 5. And how I know it's a quadratic is because I have two roots. So these are called the roots, the x equals, and remember that's what tells us where the graph crosses the x-axis. We can change roots into factors, so we can let those equal 0. And how we do that is we bring the 7 across the other side, it becomes minus and it equals 0. And then we bring the 5 across the other side, it becomes plus and it equals 0. So what I'm doing is essentially I'm working backwards here. So for example, if I had x squared plus 5x plus 6, what I would do, and that's equal to 0, what I would do is I'd factorize that. So I had an x plus 3 and an x plus 2 equals 0. And then if two things multiply together to give 0, that means that one of them must have been 0 or the other one must have been 0. So x is minus 3 and x minus 2. Now that example is irrelevant, but I'm just showing you the steps. Is if we start with a quadratic, we factorize it, and then we split up the factors and we solve them to find the roots. So now we're going to start with the roots. We're going to convert them to factors, and we know that if we multiply these two factors together, we get 0. So I'm just working backwards up through. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm working from 4, 3, 2, 1. And if we multiply these out, so split up the first bracket and multiply it back out, so you get x squared plus 5x minus 7x minus 35 equals 0, and tidy it up. So 5 take away 7 is minus 2x minus 35 equals 0. So there is your equation that has roots. So we're working backwards. So if the roots of an equation, if we're given them, that means we've solved it for x. So your two answers are x equals and x equals. Change them to equal 0, and that gives you your factors. And if you multiply the factors together, you get 0, and then just multiply them out. So we're working backwards from solving a quadratic.